This is NDTV, and you're watching NDTV 24/7.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Living with COVID. I'm Rishika Barua. This is the show where we help you navigate the new normal in the time of the coronavirus pandemic. Joining us as always is a panel of expert doctors. Dr. Saurabh Arora, an assistant professor, Department of Endocrinology from the Dayanand Medical College in Ludhiana is with us. Dr. Mahendra Patel, a diabetologist from the Patel's Diabetes Care Center, joining us from Thane at the moment. And Dr. G. Justin Paul, he is the State Heart Attack Program Nodal Officer from Tamil Nadu, the government professor of cardiology at the Madras Medical College, Chennai, also with us. Appreciate you, doctors, for sparing the time of day. I want to begin by asking you about patients who are scared to visit hospitals and clinics because of the fear of the COVID-19. What's the advice that you'd like to give them? Dr. Arora, if I can begin by asking you, what are the steps that you're taking, for instance, to inspire confidence for patients to be able to come back and seek medical attention?
A number of preventions to halt down the spread of coronavirus in the hospital premises. The first thing that we did in our hospital was the segregation of the flu corner. This avoided the mixing up of the patients with flu-like symptoms with other normal patients. The other thing which proved quite useful was the reduction in the number of attendants accompanying the patient. Only one attendant was allowed to enter in the waiting area, and that too after sanitizing the hand, and they are provided with the 3-ply surgical masks, and they are screened with thermal scanner before entering into the waiting room. And the waiting room is divided into 2 parts, one for the patients and one for the attendants. This avoids mixing up of the attendants with the patients. And inside the waiting area, the chairs are placed 6 feet apart,
right,
so as to comply with the norms of the social distancing. We have observed that reception area is particularly vulnerable in catching coronavirus infection. So to counteract this problem, we placed a plastic sheet in front of the reception desk.
right.
It acts like a barrier between the patient and the attendant.
Okay, so you're talking about waiting areas and the kind of segregation that you're doing. But Dr. Patel, if I can come to you, what about consulting chambers and how do you make that safe for your patients?
First of all, there are generally 4 sets of rules for the patients. First, they have to have their hands sanitized, their body sanitized if available in the clinic. Second thing, they have to always have their face mask on, which should cover their nose and mouth completely, and they should not touch anywhere else in the clinic. And fourth, they should have a social distancing from other patients by about 2 meters. In the chambers, before entering the chamber, the report has to be seen by the doctor via email or by WhatsApp. Once the patient enters the chambers, there should be a discussion of the problems by the patient and the doctor. After that, if patient has to be examined, the doctor will examine the patient on a bed which is prior sanitized, and even the BP apparatus has to be sanitized prior to checking of BP, and the stethoscope should also be sanitized for every patient. Once the patient has been checked up, the prescription should be given on a single piece of paper, and that should be given in the file itself. It should not be touched by the patient directly. Then the patient has to come out of the clinic, go directly out of the clinic without waiting in the waiting room for longer periods of time. There should be not a more waiting period for the patients in the waiting room. One more thing I'd like to share, that all the patients need not come to the OPD or need not need face-to-face consultation. Some patients can be given online consultations where patients don't have major problems and they can take online consultation from the doctors. But only patients who have serious problems or who are showing some new problems, maybe hypoglycemia, or maybe there is some increase in the complications, or there are new complications set up in the patients which can cause problems. So those patients should come to the clinic and consult with the doctors by taking prior appointment and sending the reports through email or through WhatsApp to the doctors prior coming to the clinic.
Dr. Paul, if I can come to you at this moment, how do you manage to conduct procedures like ECGs or, blood pressure measurements in these times? Is it safe to use, common equipment? What are the kind of safeguards that you've put in place?
So the healthcare worker and the patients, they both wear masks when they come into the clinic. The healthcare worker sanitizes their hands before touching the patient. They stand beside the patient, avoiding face-to-face contact, and they check the blood pressure with an automated BP machine, and also check the pulse oximeter saturation and the heart rate. Coming to the ECG part, the patient's upper torso is freed up. The healthcare worker makes sure that they wear a new glove for every ECG. They don a face mask. The patient also dons a face mask. The patient looks to the other side when the healthcare worker takes care in fixing the leads. In this way, they minimize the contact with the patient. The ECG and the blood pressure can be safely recorded in any system if proper precautions are followed, and patients need not worry for coming to the clinics for checking their BP and the ECG.
All right, very interesting. Dr. Arora, if I can come back to you at this moment, any special care, special attention that needs to be taken by type 1 diabetes patients, and are they actually more susceptible to the COVID-19 as compared to other diabetes patients?
Yes, we need to take special precautions for type 1 diabetic patients. As we have seen in many studies that type 1 diabetic patients are more vulnerable to complications of the COVID-19 infection as compared to type 2 diabetes and other general population. But one thing I would like to clarify, type 1 diabetic patients are not at increased risk of catching infection from COVID-19, but they are at increased risk of dying from the COVID-related complications. And they are also at increased risk of diabetic ketoacidosis, which is seen very frequently in patients with COVID-19. So to prevent these complications, we advise patients to frequently monitor their sugar levels and ketone levels, and they do not skip their insulin injections. They have to make sure that insulin injections are taken at a proper time, and we advise them to maintain an adequate hydration to prevent diabetic ketoacidosis. And the most important thing is good metabolic control. What do I mean by good metabolic control is blood pressure, sugars and lipids within the normal range. Only this intervention has helped to reduce the complication of COVID-19 in diabetic patients.
Let me come across to you, Dr. Paul, because the other important question, of course, is susceptibility to COVID-19 for those who are suffering from a heart disease. How can they lower their risk of contracting the infection, and what are some of the complications that heart patients can develop, God forbid, if they do contract the infection?
First, I would like to reassure that as of now, there is no evidence that majority of the cardiac patients have a higher risk of contacting COVID-19 when compared to the general population. So please do not panic if you have a heart disease. Having said that, it is also important to recognize that certain patients with some conditions like post-cardiac transplant who are on immunosuppressants, heart failure, or severe pulmonary hypertension, they are at a higher risk of getting COVID infection. So they need to be extra careful. Now, once infected, these patients with underlying heart disease, they have a higher risk of getting complications when compared to most other patients. The death rates of as high as 10 to 11% have been recorded in patients with heart disease who contract COVID compared to general population where the death rate is 1 to 2%. These patients may present to us with heart attacks without blocks when we do an angiogram. This has been an unusual presentation we often see. The patients can present to us with heart muscle infection, what we call myocarditis, and they can present with heart failure. The presentations of COVID and heart has been quite varied. And it is very important that the patients, they recognize the symptoms early and they come to the hospital. If they come early, the treatment can be offered better and they can be saved.
Dr. Arora, if I can come to you at this moment, what about patients who are suffering from PCOD and PCOS? Do they need to take any extra precautions at the time of this pandemic? And God forbid, if they contract the coronavirus, what are the chances of complications in those cases?
Most of the patients with polycystic ovarian syndrome are young-aged females. So this is an added advantage. Young age is an added advantage to them. So the risk of the complication is quite low. The good news for PCOS patient is that current data indicates no increased risk of contracting coronavirus, or there is no increased risk of complications from COVID-19 in PCOS patients. But this has to be taken with a pinch of salt, because many of these patients share risk factors with COVID-19, such as obesity, hypertension, diabetes. Having said that these patients are obese, they are having hypertension, the risk is quite low because of their younger age. But the only way to reduce this lower risk even to further down is to reduce the weight, maintain a healthy lifestyle, and weight reduction is most important in PCOS patients, along with the good metabolic control, and they can continue with the normal medications that they are taking for PCOS in the COVID-19 pandemic.
But then are you also suggesting that younger people are less susceptible to the coronavirus? Are you saying that there is an age factor? Because, it has also been seen in certain parts of the world that the younger population is also getting infected.
No, I'm not saying that younger patients are not susceptible. The susceptibility of younger and elderly population is almost equal.
Right.
But the risk of dying from the complications of COVID-19 is less in younger patients as compared to the older patients. No doubt, you are correct. We have seen many young mortalities with COVID-19, but the fraction is quite less if we compare it with elderly population.
All right. So it's not like a young person can't get the coronavirus.
Yeah.
They can, but the chances of them developing complications are lower. So the chances of them making a full recovery after, contracting the infection are higher. Very interesting. Dr. Paul, what about procedures like angioplasty, angiography during the time of a pandemic? Can they be held off for a later date, or is that more risky than actually doing it now?
Angioplasty is by and large a safe procedure with more than 99% success rate, with majority of the patients coming out without complications in COVID season or not.
Right.
The question is how COVID safe it is. I'm happy to share with you that most of the hospitals have made necessary changes in the infrastructure, and most of the healthcare workers in this cardiac environment have had necessary training in the way that they made the cross-infection chances are very less between the patient and the healthcare workers. So if the patient has a need to reach out to the hospital for an angioplasty, they need not hesitate despite the pandemic setting. Now, there are two types of, you can broadly classify them into two varieties: emergency angioplasty and elective angioplasty. What is this emergency angioplasty? If a delay in angioplasty can lead to death of the patient or any damage to the organs of the patient, or is going to give a very poor quality of lifestyle to the patient despite optimal medications, we can consider them an emergency angioplasty. Angioplasties to heart attack, they fall into this particular category. When a patient develops a heart attack, the best treatment will be doing an angiogram at the earliest and removing the block and putting in a stent in its place. I want to impress upon that during the last 2 to 3 months across the world, there has been a 30 to 50% decrease in the number of patients reporting to the hospital with a heart attack. Initially, it was thought it is a good sign. Later, it was realized that many patients are dying in home and they have not sought the hospital fearing the COVID-19 pandemic. So I want to impress upon the viewers here that an untreated heart attack can kill a patient 10 times more likely than a COVID.
Right.
So it is very important to seek medical attention without delay if they have symptoms of heart attack.
Well, I
the
think that's...
other group,
Right. Go ahead,
the
doctor.
elective
Please complete
group,
your point.
where it's a non-emergency angioplasty, most incidentally detected blocks in the blood vessels or blocks where the symptoms are very well controlled, by and large can wait a couple of months. Your cardiologist who's treating you will be able to guide you. Except certain blocks in important location like left main, most other blocks, if the patient is stable, can wait. So if your cardiologist is asking you to wait for 2 to 3 months or 4 months, do not worry, be reassured. To summarize, angioplasty is a very safe procedure in these times. So please reach out to the hospital if you have any symptoms suggestive of heart attack.
All right. Please reach out if you have symptoms of a heart attack, or if you are a heart patient or any patient with a comorbidity. It's extremely important that you take care of yourself, take extra precautions and seek medical help, because like our panel of expert doctors has been saying, it is safe and they themselves are taking all the precautions. We'll continue this conversation. We're going to slip into a very short break. The doctors will be live with us on the other side. To stay tuned.
Knowledge Partner, USV, your reliable healthcare partner.
Welcome back. You're watching Living with COVID. Dr. Patel, if I can come to you, what are the kind of precautions that one should take for individual safety in an office space? What about common areas like canteens or conference rooms? What about people who are used to sharing food, for example? What's the new normal in an office space? What are the SOPs that one should follow?
There are proper 4 SOPs to be followed. First, sanitize your hand when you enter the office or in the office area. Sanitize your seating places where you are, or your table should be sanitized. Second point should be that you have to not touch any places extra other than your workplace. Fourth, it should be that when there is corona patients around, you should not be working in the office. You should be off the office. You should be working from home. Keep social distancing from other workers along with you so that you don't get the contact of the COVID patients. Also, third thing, suppose you are giving tiffin or sharing your tiffin lunch boxes with other people. This is not recommended because you are not going to maintain a social distance of 2 meters. Another thing, once you have a food, if you eat with hands or with your spoon, you might touch with the spoon with the hand and in your mouth. So if you are carrying the virus, you can transmit it to the other person, or the other person can transmit it to you. So social distancing and sanitizing yourself is the main SOP in the office work areas.
All right, very crucial advice there. Dr. Arora, once again, if I can ask you about diabetes patients, should they be going to work? And if diabetes patients do have to go to work and get on with their lives like the rest of us, what are the kind of extra precautions that they need to take?
Answering to your first question, it all depends upon the work environment and the condition of the patient. Suppose if a diabetic patient is having his blood sugar levels under control and the work environment is not a very high risk environment as per CDC guidelines, the patient can go to work, no problem. But in case the metabolic control is not good and the workplace environment is a high risk, my advice would be to go to and meet your physician, optimize the management of your blood glucose, and after that you can join the work. Till then, working from home would be a better option.
All right, Dr. Patel, what are the kind of dietary or say exercise advice that you would give to such patients? What are the extra things that they can do in order to be able to effectively manage the disease at home?
See, they have to monitor their sugars very well, and from the diet point of view, they have to drink a lot of water. They have to have plenty of vegetables to be eaten, lots of fruits to be eaten. All the food which they are eating should be healthy so that they don't increase their sugar levels, and they have to avoid spicy, oily and sweet foods which will increase their sugar level and can lead to their reducing immunity. So to maintain their sugars, they have to maintain their proper diabetic diet and maintain a healthy life at home. From the exercise point of view, they have to do exercise which is possible inside the house. Maybe you can say push-ups, or you can say running or jogging in place, or do cycling at place. While also they can do yoga as a part of their exercise, which can help them maintain their health and also improve their immunity and reduce their sugar level. While going out of the house is not recommended during this COVID times.
Dr. Paul, what about treatment for heart diseases at this time? What is usually effective treatments? Do they hold in the time of a pandemic? Or, are there different rules and regulations that apply when it comes to managing heart conditions?
In the government of Tamil Nadu, we have established a heart attack management program at a cost of almost 100 crores in our state, the first of its kind in the country. Our system involves 18 government medical college hospitals, which have been provided with cardiac catheterization laboratories worth 4 crores, which are linked to 154 district hospitals and taluk hospitals. in a hub and spoke model, forming 18 heart attack management clusters across the state of Tamil Nadu. The primary aim is to provide immediate angiogram and angioplasty to patients with a heart attack so that we can save lives. But now, considering the present scenario, we have issued some 2 COVID-specific focused recommendations to ensure that our system remains COVID safe. At the same time, the patients do get the best appropriate care for heart attack, despite the fact that many of our government cardiology colleagues are in the front line of COVID management as well. What we have recognized is the healthcare workers are the currency coins of our healthcare delivery. So we have taken all steps to protect them. We have trained them in the use of personal protective equipments. We have trained them in keeping the working environment and the equipment safe and the patients COVID safe. Every patient coming to the cardiac emergency is considered as a potentially COVID positive patient, and the healthcare workers are expected to wear personal protective equipments. As a result, they work confidently and the healthcare delivery continues even in the COVID season. The other important change that we have done is in the pharmacoinvasive therapy. Pharmacoinvasive therapy is considered in settings like district hospitals or taluk hospitals where you don't have the cardiac catheterization facility. There we thrombolize the patient, that is giving the clot busting drug at the earliest and referring to the main hospital for angiogram. In this season, if the hospital is in the red zone, we have advised to avoid routine referrals. Only patients who are very sick and in an emergency situation, we advise them to refer. These are some of the steps that we have taken in our system. The other important step is that to reduce the footfall of patients in the hospital, we have encouraged our hospitals to start teleconsultations to help the patients to cover the pandemic situation. We have been issuing free medicines almost for 2 weeks in every visit for our patient. This time we have increased to 2 months. This also reduces the footfall of the patients during the COVID season. We are also telling the patient the basic important thing. 80% of the transmission of COVID happens between our own hands and our own face. So if we take effective steps to make sure that we don't touch our face without washing our hands well, we protect 80% of the infections.
All right.
The remaining 20 is between face-to-face contact and environment-to-face contact. A properly donned face mask is going to protect that as well. So we encourage our patients to follow this and stay confident. I'm sure they will be fine.
All right, I think that's a very comprehensive update as far as management of chronic diseases for heart patients is concerned. Appreciate you doctors for sparing the time of day to answer our questions so very patiently. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much.
Knowledge Partner, USV, your reliable healthcare partner.